Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I appreciate it. I also love it if people leave a comment, so tell me what you think. Today is going to be a multi-project video, and occasionally I'll do an animal-themed one, and today we're going to do turtles. So I've been meaning to do turtles for a while. I've done some turtle projects in the past, and I think they make for kind of cool, fun pieces. So I'm going to do a pair of earrings that's very basic. I'm going to do two different pendants, one that's a sea turtle but also kind of stylized, I guess. And then finally the last one will be a little more detailed, and it'll be a pendant, but it's going to be a land turtle. So I think they'll be fun. I'm thinking the first one is a beginner project, the second one's probably sort of intermediate, and the third one's going to take a little bit more work and a little more detail, so it'll probably be considered advanced. Before we get started, I wanted to thank some groups of people. I have a brand new member over on Patreon. It's Janice K. Thank you for signing up. I really appreciate your support. Thank you also to my previous patrons who have been longtime supporters. I love the community that you've created over there, and I'm really glad that you're getting some value from it. I know I am. The other group is my YouTube subscribers. We passed 12,100, I think, was the most recent benchmark, and that's amazing. Thank you for that. And also thank you for all the nice contributions and comments that you've made. The Buy Me a Coffees really help out with the materials cost. I just had to make an order yesterday. Things like that add up and really help. Thanks for that. All right, let's get started on these three projects. This is one of my design idea books. Here's actually the newest one that I just got my sample from the merch store. This one I put a conversion chart for fractions of an inch to decimals in inches to millimeters in decimals. So I think it's useful because I'm starting to use millimeters more than anything else anymore. I like the metric system, but it's a good value and a good place to put your ideas down. I also have a handy chart. So this is the one I've been working my way through. And here's today's projects. So I was looking at various different ideas for this, and I was going to make some earrings with where did I put those? These little stone beads that I'm not sure what they are. Maybe some kind of serpentine or something. Sometimes you can set beads in bezels like that and they look very nice. So I was going to do that, but I changed my mind and I'm going with some slightly smaller stones. These ones are actually dyed agates, and they look like this, so they're going to be right there. And like I said, the earrings are going to be real stylized. Just 4 balls for legs, a little bit bigger ball for a head, and then a piece of tail that's kind of pointy. I'm not sure what I'm going to make that out of, some little half round or something that's filed to a point. And then we'll just put them on ear wires. For all of these I made the bezels in advance because it's going to be a long video otherwise. If you want to see how to make basic bezels, I'll put a link up there for a video. You can check that out. The second one I'm going to do is going to be a pendant, and I picked out, I think this is aventurine, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be some kind of green moss agate or something that's kind of dense, but either way it's perfect for a sea turtle. So I'm going to use that as his body, and like I said, I made a bezel for it. And then we're going to create little flippers for him out of, I think, 22 gauge sheet. I have some scrap sheet here that was 18 and I rolled it out in my new Pepe rolling mill. So I have some big enough pieces to cut from between these holes to make these little flippers there. I may texture them, I haven't decided yet. The head, I think I'm going to use some low dome half round, which is number 4 from Rio. It's 5.89 millimeters wide. For the ear wires here we're using 20 gauge ear wires, and I didn't write down the millimeter measurement on that, so I'll have to look that up and I'll put it in the video. The sheet on the back of these is 26 gauge on the backs of the bezels, which is 0.41 millimeters, and I'm using 26 gauge fine silver bezel strip for the bezel. It's 3/16 inch tall, which is 4.76 millimeters, and I think the thickness of it, being 26, is the same as this sheet, so it'd be 0.41 millimeters. Let's see, the final project over here. Oh, I'm going to put a hidden bail behind his head so we can run the chain, so it looks like he's kind of holding onto the chain with his mouth. And that'll probably be just a little piece of skinny half round, like 12 gauge half round, if I can find a piece of that laying around somewhere. And then on this one, this is going to be more of a land turtle, and I have this mystic topaz, which is that vapor deposition coating of titanium on the surface of topaz, which gives it that kind of sparkly, colorful look. We'll do a bezel like that mounted on a piece of 18 gauge sheet that's been domed with this oval cut out of the middle and the bezel mounted on that. And then I was going to take some silver balls that I made out of some scrap, flatten them out, and solder them down there around it to give it some shell-like appearance. This is going to be 8 gauge half round that I'm going to do a little bit of sawing and filing to make them look like little feet. And I'll probably do the same thing for the head here with this stuff. 8 gauge half round is 3.25 millimeters wide, and the 18 gauge sheet that we're going to use for the bottom is 1.02 millimeters thick. This stone is about 13 by 11. These ones were 8 by 10s. If you ever have agates like these that you buy, the little green or blue agates, those are all dyed, so just so you know. 22 gauge sheet up here, I think I forgot to mention, is 0.66 millimeters. So I'm doing the millimeters for my overseas viewers because a lot of places overseas don't use gauges, they use millimeters. So that's what we're doing. Alright, so let's show you the bezels I made for these guys. That and that. So we need to make some little silver balls and a tail first. So let's put these other stones back over here. Don't lose them. It's best to make silver balls on a charcoal block if you got one. Seems to make nicer balls. And I found some little scrap wire from previous projects. If you ever watched my weaving one, this is left over from the weaving one. So I should be able to snip some pieces off of here. If you've never been to my channel before, my torch is a Silversmith model, which is an acetylene air torch. And for all my soldering purposes, I generally use hard silver sheet solder. And I use a liquid flux, which I generally either spray on or dribble on with a dropper bottle. Well, I think they do. And I actually accidentally put exactly the right amount on there. So we'll just use those and we'll solder those there. We need a slightly bigger one for the head, and then we'll make a little tail out of some half round if I can, like I said, if I can find a piece. So let's cut some little bit bigger pieces. From past experience. Alright, so we got those and we need a little tail. So let me see if I can find some little skinny half round. Oh, I found some triangle wire. I think that's better yet. I think that'll make a little better tail. So let's do that. Let's file each one of these. Let's file it flat first. I'll figure out what size this is and put it in the description. If you can see what I did there, I just kind of tapered it down to the end along the angles of the triangle. I'll have to file the end a little flatter, but just like that. I think that'll be cute. Alright, let's make a second one of those. If you're new to my channel, I just published an ebook that's a guide to all of my videos that I put out in 2023. And seeing as I do 3 per week, that's going to equate to a lot of different videos that this is a guide to. And it's available for download on my merch store, but I'll put a link directly to it above my head here, if you'd like. It gives you quick access to extra information about the project, including a materials list, what you need to make it, and it has a picture of my sketch, and it has a final picture of the piece after it was done, and it has a difficulty rating, and it includes some notes that I made about the projects, indicating whether I thought they were hard, easy, what parts I might have done different, that kind of stuff. And there's even a link right to the video, so you can easily access it without having to search for it. It's a good way to support my channel if you're interested in that, and also support yourself in having some easily accessible project ideas and how to do them. What I'm doing here is called pick soldering, if you've never seen that before. That one I jumped the gun a little bit. But it allows you to pretty easily, if I was to tell you one thing that you should learn as quickly as you can to become proficient at this, it would be pick soldering. It opens up a lot of options for you. Oh, so if you're interested in learning pick soldering, I'll put a link up there to my pick soldering video. I said it's kind of a game-changing skill to have. This is pretty symmetrical. Now I'm going to make a little like 20 gauge ring. I might have some in here if I sometimes keep little spirals around that I've done in the past. I usually make these by taking some 20 gauge and wrapping it around a piece of 14 gauge. This will be where we hook our ear wires onto. Oops. Okay, there should be enough solder on there to just butt it up against these. I think I'm going to have to cut this one's tail a little bit shorter, maybe that one too. But it'll be easier now that it's attached to get a fine detailing like that. When you're soldering something that is much bigger than the other piece that you're soldering to it, the big piece takes longer to get up to soldering temperature, so you mostly focus on that. And at the end you can focus on the little piece. Otherwise the little piece reaches temperature too quickly and sometimes melts before you ever get it hot enough to get it to solder to the bigger piece. Okay, so those are pretty much done. And like I said, those are kind of the basic ones. Cute little turtles. Like I said, I'll make his tail a little bit shorter on both of those probably. So let's let those pickle and we'll move on to the next project, which is our little sea turtle pendant. So there's the bezel I made for it. And I've made similar things to this one in the past. I have one right here that I brought with my display. This one is, on this one I used a botryoidal chalcedony, which has got this kind of bumpy crystalline formation on it. And it was just kind of an interesting stone, so I thought it looked like a turtle's body. And I used a little opal on his head. And I did reticulation to get kind of a scaly looking texture on there. And I like this one okay. It's not my favorite piece I've ever made, but it's generally a cool piece. And so this one will be, I think I'm going to do this one a little more stylized. I may not even texture these, I don't know. I think I'll probably leave it smooth. Because this one's going to be kind of texturized, so let's do that. But, like I said, I have this 22 gauge. So let's see if we can, this is definitely big enough to get that one off of there. So I think I'm going to use my marker. To turn this black like that. And then I'll use a pin to kind of scratch out my design. So I can use these calipers. I get an idea about how big I made that. So from that corner to there. So I'm just going to use a saw to cut out that inside curve there. I'll be right back. I decided to do 22 gauge sheet, and so I used a piece of scrap I had that had some holes closely together that was 18 gauge, and I rolled it through the rolling mill until it was thin enough for what I needed. That also made some space where I could cut out these little flippers for it. So I thought I was filming, and I just think I wasn't, but I did the first one like this and used a file to clean it up after I trimmed it off, and then I just traced a second one here. And so let's cut most of this off, and I'll use a little saw to get the inside curve. Okay, and I'm going to do these two the same exact way. I'm not going to make you watch me do the same thing again. So I'll be right back. We have both of these and both of these. We're down here. We have not yet made a head. One thing I want to do though, and I did it on this one so far, is I want to dome these a little bit so they have a little bit of shape to them instead of just being flat. You could do them just flat if you want to, but I think it'll look a little more fun if they're domed a little bit. So I'm just going to use a dapping block. So I'll just put it in there. For the bezel on this one, I used a little bit thicker sheet than I do normally, simply because I knew these were going to be soldered right near the base, and I wanted them to have something strong and thick to be attached to. So, like I said, if you wanted to get fancy, you could texture these a little bit, or reticulate them, or whatever. Oops. Never fails that I bump something. Let's try this again. I keep missing. I was getting it to melt onto one or the other piece, but not both at the same time. So I needed to get that attached. There was a slight gap between them, so it kept going where I didn't want it to go. Okay, let's make his head out of this, I think it's number 4 low dome half round wire. I'm just going to file it to a point on the end and then taper it in a little bit and we'll cut it off. And then we'll use a Dremel maybe to put some eyes on it. Don't have to get too fancy on this one. That's about where we want it to go, so maybe kind of like that. I think that'll work. Let's solder that on. I like doing these little animal themed ones. Different animals kind of come into fashion and out of fashion, so there's some that are almost always around. Turtles are one of them. Owls is another one. I haven't done an owl video yet, but I've only made a couple of owl things before. Too far back? I think that's too far back. Kind of more towards the front. Right there. Let's do that. So I've got these little diamond burrs that I got, I think, on Amazon. They were really cheap, but they're really handy to use. So I'm going to try and see if we can't have a steady hand here. Let me clean that up and see what it looks like. Okay, I used the Dremel to just kind of smooth those out a little bit so you could kind of get a better idea of what he looks like. And I wanted to get rid of all the marker and all the goobers that were on there. And I didn't get his eyes perfect, but I think they're good. Once it's all polished up, they'll look deliberate. And not everything in nature is 100% symmetrical, especially when Chad's trying to do a representation of it. But, you know, you can do a little bit of fine-tuning there. For the bail, a lot of times when I'm doing something like this, if I want to put a fine chain on it, I can cut like a little kind of squared off piece of half round that's kind of with the rounded part on the inside so the chain will flow nicely through it. And we can make that a hidden bail back here like this. But I'll probably have to file it a little bit to get it nice and cleaned up. because it's not sitting straight, so let's do that. But in order to keep it from anything moving or sliding around, let's push this guy into a softer pad, like that. So none of him is likely to fall off then. Nothing worse than having your head fall off in mid-jewelry project. Okay, we got our little turtle. I'm going to throw him in the pickle, and we'll get to work on the third one. So for the third one, we're going to do this non-sea turtle here, and this one we're going to dome a piece of 18 gauge sheet, like I said. This was the bezel I made for that Mystic topaz, and what I did was I cut out a piece of sheet that was slightly bigger than this. And this was kind of an estimate, but I did my best to find close to the center as I could here. And then I scratched a scratch about, millimeter and a half inwards from where the bezel is. And that's where I'm going to cut out the center point with the saw. So let's go do that real quick. And then we can dome this, and then hopefully mount this on there. Again, I apologize for my mess over here. So I've got a saw. I think I have a 00 on here. All right, let's go clean that up a little bit over at the other area. I'm just using a half-round jeweler's file here. That looks not bad. I think now we need to dome it. Oops. I don't want it to be curved like that, though. I want the bottom to be kind of flat. Kind of more of a flattish aspect here now on the edge, so it sits flat with the dome. I'm going to sweat some solder under the edge of this here, so let's see how that works. That looks pretty good. There's a lot more mass in my bottom piece than there is in the bezel up top here. Fit right down in there. And it's domed enough to where that won't be pokey. So far, so good. Let's, so the next thing we're going to do, I think, so I was going to make some flattened balls to go around here. So let's figure a size that we like, and then let's make a bunch of them and flatten them. This is all some flattened 14 gauge square wire, so I'll try and use equal sized pieces of this, and we'll see how it comes out. So let's melt one. And I cut a second one just to see if that was the right size. Or to have one in reserve so I can cut some more of this size if it's correct. One of the problems with flattening balls is they go shooting across the room. What you can do, tape them down like that, and then I'm going to use my chasing hammer. We'll see how that looks. Flattened ball. Let's see if that's a good size for this. I think so, actually. If I work all the way around there, then I can trim this down just a skosh. And then we'll add the legs and head. Put a bail on here. Okay, so I'm going to use this size then. Make a whole bunch of these. Okay. So I'm going to be making balls for a little bit. So I'll be right back. Why is that one so short? So I got a bunch of little flattened balls here. I think I should have enough. If not, we can make a few more. But I positioned this in the magnesia block so I could kind of get it a little flatter so I could get these to sit here. I think I may we sweat a little solder onto each of these so that it's already got solder in place. And that way we can just flip them over and plop them on there a couple at a time probably. Alright, got them going all the way around. If you wanted to do a really fancy one, you could probably do multiple layers. Or like concentric rings of these little flattened discs might be kind of cool. Before you finish this up though, you want to pick all of these things really hard with your fingernail and try and pull them off. You don't want one of your balls falling off after you sell this to someone. So, alright, so I'm going to trim this off. I'll be back in a minute. So my last little thing here, it's in the pickle right now, but I put a head on and a tail because you've already seen me do that on this one and this one. And now I need to put a leg on, and I was going to use some 8-gauge half round, and I thought I already rounded the end a little bit here, and I was going to flatten it just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to put three little notches to give it kind of a foot-like appearance. And I'm just going to saw that in with a saw. So I'm going to use one of these slots here to kind of get my middle one started. Kind of keeps your saw on track while you cut into there just a little bit. And I'm going to angle it a little bit this way. I don't need to go very far, but I am going to go back and I'm going to widen those a little bit with my half-round jeweler's file. So I'm going to have to cut his toes again. I got a little solder in there. Oops. I'm going to clean him up, recut those toes on that one, and then we'll finish him with the bail. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and solder this little ring in. I kind of split it so it's got a little notch out of it, and then we'll just solder it to the sides of his head. I forgot to put his eyes on. I was going to do that before I did this, but let's go ahead and do this. I'll solder on this bail through that loop. This is just kind of a standard bail that I use pretty frequently. If you're interested, there's a video about how to make these. They're kind of a good generic bail. And let's solder these. Okay, so I'm just going to slip this over this. And then bend these towards each other just a little bit. So they're touching. You may say to yourself, you got that stuff all soldered on there and you got it all elevated now away from the pad, so aren't you going to overheat it and have it fall off? Probably not, because this bail is a separate piece, That's why I really don't want to heat the turtle himself anyway, because I don't want anything on him to flow. And since it's a separate piece, it's not really going to bleed anything off too much as far as heat. So it's easy to heat just the bail then. Okay, so now I'm going to let him pickle. I'll show you the final result when I come back. And these, which I think turned out nice. That'd be the beginner piece. The intermediate piece, which is our little sea turtle with aventurine or whatever that is. And we got our land turtle with lots of sparkles there. Okay, I'll take some better pictures and put them at the end. I think there's a lot of variations you could do with turtles. There's tons of different turtle designs out there, so I think it's a fun project, so have fun. So that was the 3 turtle projects. I hope you enjoyed that, and make sure if you did that you hit that like button down below. The other thing is, take a moment and check out some of my other videos. I have well over 330 videos on my channel now, which blows me away. But there's a lot of content here. I think you'll find a lot of it fun and interesting. Check a few out and give me a subscribe. Also, check out the video description down below. There's some important links. There's a link to my new ebook that I just published. I think it's a great value. There's some other links down there too. There's a link to my Patreon site if you want to check out that community over there and find out about it. There's a link to my merch store where you can get one of those nice design idea books. There's a link to Pepe Tools, of which I am an affiliate now. So if you click that link and buy something over there within 3 days, I get a bonus. So feel free to do that. They have lots of cool tools. And there's also a link to my website if you're interested in seeing that. It's kind of under construction now, but if you see a piece of jewelry on any of these videos and you're interested in purchasing it, just contact me through my website. Chances are I might still have it, so let me know. All right, well, thanks for watching the video. Take care. Happy silversmithing.